The detachment of the divine feminine is often misunderstood. It's not about seeking revenge, engaging in manipulation, or playing mind games. When the divine feminine chooses to detach from her twin flame relationship, a significant change occurs within the energetic exchange between them. Today, we're delving deeply into this sacred journey, exploring how her absence can fundamentally alter the dynamic and why this act of detachment frequently ignites one of the most significant spiritual awakenings for the divine masculine. If you've been feeling the urge to step back, to prioritize your own needs, to release the burden of a one-sided connection, this message is especially for you. And if you're questioning whether your absence is resonating, whether your decision to remain silent holds any significance, I want to assure you that every shift you make within your energy sends out ripples that reach far beyond your perception. The path of the divine feminine towards detachment is rarely instant. It typically results from many months, if not years, of bearing an energetic weight that was never intended to be carried alone. She has been the one radiating love through the universe, providing space for his healing, and believing in the connection even amidst overwhelming signs to walk away. She has served as the spiritual anchor, the emotional interpreter, and the link between reality and potential. Yet, there arrives a moment, a sacred moment, when her internal perception transforms. It's not theatrical and lacks fanfare. Rather, it's a quiet acknowledgement that she has been neglecting her own needs in the name of unconditional love. She comes to understand that maintaining space for someone unprepared to reciprocate isn't love. It's enabling behavior. In that moment of clarity, she makes a choice that alters everything. She prioritizes herself. This isn't about becoming unfeeling or shutting down her heart. The divine feminine does not detach by constructing barriers or hardening her essence. She reestablishes her connection to herself by turning her focus inward. By channeling all that magnificent, potent love she's been extending outward, back into her own essence, she halts the energetic grasping, the regular meditation check-ins, and the endless hoping and praying for signs. Instead, she shifts her attention inside. She starts to cultivate her own aspirations, her unique purpose, and her divine mission that exists wholly independently of whether he steps up. This transformation, this reallocation of her energy is instantaneously felt in the energetic field, even if it may take some time for the masculine to consciously perceive what is occurring. When the divine feminine begins to detach, the first effect is a recalibration of her personal energy. For a long time, she has been functioning from a place of deficiency, yearning, and waiting for external affirmation of their connection. As she retracts her energy, she begins to rediscover who she was prior to meeting him, who she is evolving into due to the lessons learned, and who she is destined to be with or without this relationship. This is not about relinquishing on love. It's about growing into a version of love that doesn't necessitate compromising herself. She's discovering that genuine divine love begins with self-love. That you can't give from an empty cup, and that the most captivating thing she can do is become so complete within herself that she no longer requires anything external to fulfill her. As she becomes immersed in this new energy, a beautiful transformation unfolds. Her desperation shifts into tranquility. Her longing evolves into purpose. Her waiting matures into action, working on herself, honing her gifts, and living the life she is meant for, irrespective of his presence. Meanwhile, the divine masculine finds himself entirely unprepared for this transition. He has grown accustomed to her energy being perpetually accessible, even if he never consciously recognized it. He has become accustomed to sensing her love, her support, and her unwavering belief in him flowing through their connection like an endless river. He has taken for granted that regardless of the distance he places between them or how much he flees from the depth of their bond, she would always be there, energetically holding the space and keeping the flame alive. Yet suddenly, that steady source of energetic nourishment has vanished. Not because her love has diminished, but because she has finally learned to prioritize her own well-being enough to stop giving away her energy without receiving any in return. This absence, this emptiness where her energy once resided, creates a significant disruption within him. At first, he may not even recognize it consciously. However, on a deeper level, something feels amiss. The world appears a bit chillier, a touch less enchanting. He finds himself becoming more irritable, more restless, and increasingly disconnected from his own spiritual core. He can't quite understand why, but he begins to sense an essential part of his life is missing. This is because the essence of the divine feminine was not merely love. It was quite literally a spiritual lifeline. Without even realizing it, he has been relying on her light, her faith, and her connection to the divine to enrich his own spiritual journey. She has been his unconscious spiritual guide, his energetic anchor, his link to aspects of himself he wasn't prepared to explore alone. Now that link is absent, not shattered, but simply no longer accessible to him. For the first time, he is compelled to face his own spiritual void, his own disconnect from the source, and his own reluctance to embrace the growth that their connection had been attempting to stimulate. The divine feminine's withdrawal impacts the masculine not just on an energetic level, but in practical ways as well. He begins to observe that life feels increasingly difficult and chaotic. Issues that once seemed to resolve themselves now appear to persist. Opportunities that once came effortlessly now demand greater effort. It seems as though the universe has pulled back some of its support. Or while this might appear to be a form of punishment, it's simply the inevitable outcome of lacking someone else's spiritual presence to soften his experiences, namely, the divine feminine's prayers, meditations, and energetic contributions to their bond. All of this had woven a protective grace around him that he was blissfully unaware of. Without that support, he confronts his life choices and spiritual path without any outside assistance. This often marks the beginning of his genuine awakening because, for the first time, he must engage in the work himself. He has to connect directly with the source, confront his fears, wounds, and resistance without her energy to rely on. Concurrently, the divine feminine is undergoing her own awakening. As she turns her focus inward, she starts uncovering parts of herself that had remained asleep, dreams that had been set aside, and talents that had been obscured by her attention to the connection. She begins to realize that she is not merely half of a twin flame duo, she is a fully autonomous being with her own divine mission. This realization is profoundly empowering. She starts to understand that all the affection she has been pouring into him, all that radiant energy directed at the connection, was intended for her own growth first. She comes to the conclusion that by continuously giving away her energy, she was actually hindering both of them from reaching their fullest potential. As she embraces this new self-centered energy, something extraordinary occurs. She becomes captivating in an entirely new manner. Previously, her allure stemmed from her willingness to love selflessly and be available. Now, it emanates from her wholeness, her self-assurance, and her unambiguous alignment with her divine mission. This transformation in her energy sends ripples throughout the entire connection. The masculine starts to notice a significant shift, not only within her, but throughout their entire relationship dynamic. He begins to feel as though he is on the verge of losing something invaluable, something he previously took for granted when it was given unconditionally. The divine feminine's withdrawal acts as a reflective surface for him, making evident the ways he has undervalued the bond they share. He realizes he has been operating with a sense of spiritual entitlement, presuming that she would bear the emotional and energetic burdens of their relationship. While maintaining a safe distance, he starts to comprehend that her love was not merely a gift, it carried a certain responsibility. By failing to reciprocate this love with the same level of commitment, presence, and energy investment, he has disrespected not just her, but also the sacred essence of their connection. This epiphany can bring considerable distress for the masculine. He is compelled to acknowledge his own spiritual lethargy, emotional detachment, and energetic selfishness. He must confront the truth that he has been relying on her spiritual energy like a parasite, taking without offering anything in return. Nonetheless, this discomfort and self-reflection mark the onset of his transformation. He is now faced with a decision. He can either persist in denial, attributing blame to her for withdrawing her energy, or he can accept this wake-up call as an occasion to engage in the inner work he has been sidestepping. The divine feminine's detachment instigates a spiritual crisis for the masculine. Deprived of her energy as a crutch, he must choose between sinking or swimming alone. It is often this pressure that acts as a catalyst for some of the most profound spiritual development he will experience in his lifetime. He begins to understand that the bond extends beyond mere love. It is about evolution and evolving into the highest version of himself, not just for her, but for the journey of his own soul. He starts to grasp that the twin flame relationship is a sacred mission, a divine agreement to encourage one another toward completeness. As the masculine begins to awaken to these insights, he frequently goes through what can only be termed a spiritual crisis. He suddenly recognizes what he has been taking for granted, what he has been evading, and what he risks losing if he does not make a change. He starts to experience her absence not merely as the loss of her physical presence, but as a disconnection from his own divine essence. She was not just his twin flame, she served as his spiritual reflection, mirroring his own light, potential, and his connection to the divine. Without that reflection, he must confront himself directly, and what he uncovers isn't always pleasing. He notices his fears, his resistance, his spiritual immaturity. Yet, he also begins to recognize his potential, his light, and his ability to give and receive divine love. This is frequently when the masculine undergoes what many refer to as the dark night of the soul. He confronts all the ways he has been operating below his potential, all the growth opportunities he has been shying away from, and all the love he has been too intimidated to fully accept or offer. Nonetheless, this dark night serves as a sacred initiation. It is the universe's method of stripping away everything that isn't genuinely him, all that has kept him confined and hindered him from embracing his complete divine masculine strength. Meanwhile, the divine feminine is undergoing her own kind of spiritual awakening. As she dedicates herself to her personal growth, healing, and divine purpose, she begins to embody a version of herself that is more powerful, more attractive, and more aligned than ever before. She is no longer the woman who waits, hopes, or sacrifices herself for love. She has transformed into a woman who creates, who manifests, and who loves from a space of abundance instead of need. This transformation is not only experienced by the masculine, but resonated throughout everyone around her. Her ability to detach has empowered her to embrace her complete divine feminine essence. She is no longer categorized by her connection to him or anyone else. Instead, her identity is rooted in her relationship with herself, her purpose, and the divine. This change enhances her allure, attracting not just the masculine, but life itself. Opportunities start to emerge for her, her intuition strengthens, her manifestation powers expand, and her bond with the source deepens. It seems that by withdrawing her energy from the relationship, she's liberated all that potential to weave magic in her own life. This represents one of the most exquisite features of divine feminine detachment. It's not about revenge or retribution, it's about reclamation. It's an act of taking back the energy she had been distributing and channeling it into constructing the life she is destined to lead. As the masculine observes this change, whether directly or through the energy surrounding him, he starts to realize what he has been missing. He recognizes that she is not merely beautiful, she is powerful. She is not just loving, she is wise. She is not solely his twin flame, she is a divine entity with her unique and magnificent purpose. This realization often ignites a sense of urgency within the masculine. He understands that he's not just losing someone, but also a gateway to his own divinity. He's losing the one who could recognize his highest potential and nurture him towards it. Here lies the beautiful paradox of divine feminine detachment. The more she withdraws her energy, the more magnetic she becomes. As she concentrates on herself, the more he feels compelled toward her. The more she embodies her power, the more he acknowledges what he has been fleeing from. Her detachment prompts him to grapple with a fundamental question. Is he ready to put in the effort to become the man deserving of her love? Is he prepared to embrace his own divine masculine strength? Is he ready to meet her on equal footing as a companion, as a fellow divine entity on a shared sacred journey? The detachment of the divine feminine transcends just the awakening of the masculine. It is also about her own emancipation. For far too long, she has been characterized by her capacity to love without conditions, to endlessly give, and to sacrifice her well-being for others. Yet, authentic divine feminine power is not merely about perpetual giving. It is about understanding the balance of when to offer and when to receive, when to be open and when to withdraw, when to flow and when to stand resolute. Her detachment embodies an act of self-love, a proclamation affirming her worthiness of the same love she has so generously shared. It signifies that she has drawn a line against connections that drain her energy, relationships that belittle her spirit, or love that compels her to forsake herself. This transformation in her energy communicates a powerful message to the universe and those around her. She is no longer open to anything less than divine love. She refuses to settle for potential over presence, for someday over today, for promises without actions. The masculine senses this shift in her expectations and the rise in her frequency, presenting challenges he has never encountered before. He can no longer rely on her unconditional love as a safety net. He must either elevate himself or step away. This is frequently the moment when the masculine goes through what many describe as a spiritual awakening. He is compelled to confront the disparity between his current self and the person he must evolve into. He must face his own spiritual development, his healing journey, and his connection to the divine. Some masculine energies rise to embrace this challenge. They take the awakened divine feminine's detachment as encouragement to finally tackle the inner work they have long avoided. They begin to meditate, heal their inner wounds, and connect with their own divine essence. They start to evolve into the partners they have always been capable of being. Others resist this transformation, not as a form of punishment, but as a means of protection. Protection for her energy, for his free will, and for the sacred essence of divine love itself. The divine feminine's detachment acts as a formidable spiritual asset, not a tactic or manipulation. It arises organically from her spiritual evolution as she aligns with her inherent worth and refuses to accept anything short of divine love. For those feeling drawn to this kind of detachment, understand that it isn't simple. It demands immense strength to pull back your energy from someone you care for. It necessitates faith to believe that love does not require the sacrifice of oneself. It calls for discernment to differentiate between unconditional love and conditional availability, but also recognize that your detachment is sacred. This isn't solely about your twin flame connection, it's about exemplifying what divine feminine power entails for other women. It's about revealing to the world that authentic love uplifts rather than diminishes. It's showcasing that spiritual connection hinges on mutual evolution, not one-sided giving. Your detachment serves as a gift to the masculine, even if he might not initially perceive it this way. It grants him the chance to grow, to rise to his fullest potential, to become the man he has always been capable of becoming. It strips away the spiritual training wheels so he can learn to navigate on his own. Whether he embraces this gift is his decision. However, your role isn't to force his development or to ease the path for him. Your responsibility is to honor your personal spiritual journey, safeguard your energy, and trust that the divine has a plan that exceeds your understanding. The divine feminine's detachment often signifies the start of the most transformative chapter of her life. By turning her energy inward, concentrating on her personal growth and purpose, she crafts a life that is so fulfilling, so abundant, so aligned, that she no longer requires anyone else to make her whole. Not as a form of punishment, but as a means of protection. Protection for her own energy, protection for his autonomy, and protection for the sacred essence of divine love. The detachment of the divine feminine is a profound spiritual tool, yet it is neither a tactic nor a form of manipulation. It emerges naturally from spiritual evolution, from aligning with her intrinsic value, and from rejecting anything that falls short of true divine love. For those who feel drawn to embrace this kind of detachment, it's important to understand that it isn't a walk in the park. It takes immense strength to withdraw your energy from someone you care for deeply. It demands faith to believe that real love doesn't necessitate self-neglect. It calls for wisdom to recognize the distinction between unconditional love and conditional availability. But remember, your detachment is sacred. It extends beyond the dynamics of your twin flame relationship. It's about exemplifying for other women what divine feminine empowerment embodies. It's about illustrating that genuine love uplifts rather than diminishes. It's about showcasing that a true spiritual connection thrives on mutual development, not unbalanced sacrifice. Your detachment can also be seen as a gift to the masculine, even if he may not perceive it that way at first. It provides him with the chance to evolve, to rise to the occasion, and to become the person he has always had the capability of being. It's like taking away the spiritual training wheels so he can learn to navigate independently. Whether he embraces this opportunity is ultimately his choice. Your responsibility is not to compel his growth or simplify the path for him. Your focus should be on honoring your own spiritual journey, safeguarding your energy, and trusting that the divine has a greater plan that is beyond your current understanding. The detachment of the divine feminine frequently signals the beginning of the most remarkable chapter of her existence. As she channels her energy inward and concentrates on her personal growth and purpose, she starts to create a life that is abundant, fulfilling, and in harmony, making her no longer reliant on anyone else for completion. This sense of wholeness, this self-acceptance, this captivating divine feminine energy radiates in the most enchanting way. It doesn't simply attract romantic love. It magnetizes all varieties of abundance. It invites opportunities, friendships, and experiences that resonate with her highest aspirations. If the masculine truly embodies her divine counterpart, he will be irresistibly drawn to this evolved version of her, much like a moth drawn to a flame. He'll recognize that she has transformed into more than just the woman he fell for. She has become the woman she was always destined to be. Inspired by her evolution, he'll aspire to embody the man he was meant to be all along. The divine feminine's detachment is not the conclusion of her story. Rather, it marks the onset of a new chapter where love is grounded in choice instead of necessity. Here, connections thrive on shared growth rather than one-sided sacrifices, and partnerships are founded on equality instead of discord. This embodies the true gift of divine feminine detachment. It clears a path for genuine divine love to surface, fostering the ideal conditions for authentic spiritual partnerships. It pays homage to the sacred essence of the twin flame connection, while also respecting the individual sovereignty of each soul. Your detachment is not an act of abandonment, nor a relinquishment of love. It creates room for the right type of love, one that uplifts both partners, honors the divine within each individual, and serves the highest good of all involved. Have faith in this journey. Trust your intuition. Recognize that by prioritizing yourself, you're not being egocentric, you're embodying the sacred. You are honoring the divine feminine energy that courses through you, exemplifying what true love resembles and paving the way for miracles to manifest in your life. While the divine masculine's awakening may be the most apparent outcome of your detachment, it pales in significance compared to your own spiritual freedom, your return to wholeness, and your embodiment of divine feminine strength. This is your moment to shine, to create, to bring to life the dreams you've always held. This is your opportunity to reconnect with who you are beyond any relationship or external validation. Embrace the chance to love yourself wholly, transforming into a magnet for the love you've yearned for. The divine feminine's detachment is in essence the purest form of love. Love for oneself, love for the masculine, and love for the divine plan unfolding perfectly, even if it diverges from your expectations. Trust this process. Rely on your inner strength. Be assured that your absence is felt, your silence resonates, and your detachment is crafting precisely the space needed for truth to emerge and love to blossom in its most elevated form.